Director Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan once again team up in the former's new original IP, following the latter as twin brothers in 1932 segregated Mississippi. Attempting to escape their dark past, the twin brothers actually encounter an evil even worse. As well as the Creed powerhouse duo, the film also stars Jack O'Connell, Hailee Steinfeld, Wunmi Mosaku, Omar Benson Miller, Lee John Lee, Delroy Lindo, and Jayme Lawson. The film is already shaping up to be one of the most successful of the year. At the box office, the film was projected to have around a $50 million opening weekend against a $90 million budget, and also sits at 98% on Rotten Tomatoes with critics. Safe to say, in one manner or another, this film should be a major success. But with that being said, where do I sit with this film? Let's get into this. Okay, so before I start this video, let me just say that if there's any continuity errors between what you're currently watching and about 30 seconds a minute ago, that is because I'm recording this at about 4 days apart. I recorded that first part of the video on Friday. I'm now recording this on Monday when I finally, recovered and have had time from work and everything, and I'm not like absolutely shattered from everything that's been going on. Despite that, my opinions on this movie have remained pretty much the same, and I still feel as fresh as ever to talk about this movie because I feel so strongly that this movie needs more eyes on it. It needs more people to go see it. It deserves all of the praise it's got, and it deserves to have a big box office. It deserves its critical acclaim. It's already got the critical acclaim. It just needs the box office to match it. Currently, they're saying that the box office is sitting at around 50 million. Unfortunately, 50 million against a $90 million budget just isn't very good because ideally it would need at least 180 to break even, meaning that they would probably be looking at about 250 to $300 million for this film to be considered a success. Now, of course, box office isn't the only way that we judge a film on whether it is successful or not. But with that being said, it has to be one of the ways, especially for a film that is nearing 100 million in terms of budget. With this video, whilst I have some criticisms that I want to expand upon, I think it's very important for me to try and be as positive as possible when considering that this is the biggest original movie to hit cinemas in apparently 6 years, since 2019. And if this was an original film and just wasn't very good, I wouldn't sit here and lie and say that it was the best thing since sliced bread, since that is not where my sort of channel lies. I'm not here and interested in lying. I'm here in interested in hoping that I can convince friends, family of mine, as well as a more general audience to go and see films that maybe they've never seen before or that they would never think of seeing. Despite that, even though I want them to go and see things, if I just recommend stuff that is terrible or that I know that they won't like, I lose my credibility. This channel loses its credibility. So it is important for me to be honest as possible, whilst also, if I was to review a bad original movie, for me to go, this may not be great, but I can still respect that it is original. It is pushing the medium forward. It is trying something new. With Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan's Sinners, you don't get that. This film is just very, very good. Now, I stray away from calling it excellent, which I think some people already have, and I can see where that label comes from. I just fall a bit short of that because of the criticisms I have. But before I get into those criticisms and before I explain why I don't think this movie is exactly excellent, let's discuss why I think this movie is very fucking good and deserves all of the plaudits that it's going to get. Why I think Michael B. Jordan probably at least deserves some nominations for his role, although this is a horror movie, so I don't think he will. Let's be completely clear about that. Horror movies are never successful in terms of critical acclaim. Critics might turn around and say they love the movie, but they're never going to nominate it. Fellow actors, directors, Hollywood itself is never going to nominate this film for major awards. So, with that being said, let's start at the very base of this movie, which is the concept of what this film is about. This film at its heart is about music and about how music at the soul of this film is what draws these vampires into the sort of world, into the circle of Michael B. Jordan's character, Hailee Steinfeld, Miles Caton, Jayme Lawson, Wunmi, Mosaku, all their characters. These characters are just having a good time trying to live their best life, and it is the allure of music that draws in the demons, the sinners, so to speak. At the heart of this movie, I believe that this movie is ultimately about culture vultures and about how people who don't understand what the culture is will attempt to latch onto it as much as possible. But it is only those people who take the time to learn and to ingratiate themselves and to integrate themselves that can fully become one with the community that they want to join. Those who are just there looking for a good time, as Jack Connell's character says in the movie, and those who are just interested in using it for money or for their own, sort of like working out of vices, or in this movie for their own bloodlust, are never welcome. And they may be brought in for whatever reason. In this case, it's for the protection of a child. But they are never truly one with the community. They never truly belong in the way that those who learn the culture belong. I think that this concept is incredibly strong because even though that this is really just a movie, or really this is just a fairy tale about vampires, the movie is incredibly original. Despite that, it takes what is a well-worn sort of villain in the vampire, and it morphs it into something that you can build a story around. There isn't anything actually original in this movie in terms of the villain and in terms of, one of the major characters, which is Jack Connell's vampire. He is the main villain in this movie. There isn't anything that is particularly original in that aspect, but the story that Ryan Coogler weaves around this vampire and why he is attracted to this group is so original. And without really banging you over the head, the movie is about racism, and it never really brings it up other than maybe one or two occasions. The main arc for me when it comes to encountering racism and overcoming it is actually far more subtle, which I think is something that can be a lot more digestible and a lot more thought-provoking for a modern audience, where the modern audience will go, well, I'm not racist, and, none of my friends and family are racist. We would never say anything. We would never, make slurs or anything about that. Instead, the most common type of racism, in my opinion, today is that sort of casual, sort of under the surface sort of racism that goes unnoticed, because if you aren't looking for it, you won't notice it. Therefore, a film that is subtle, that isn't directly saying these people are culture vultures, they're not interested in the culture, they're interested in something beneath the surface, that is a film that, in my opinion, is a lot more palatable and a lot more digestible for a modern audience and a modern casual mainstream audience. It is digestible because they won't accept a film that is overtly like, yes, this is about racism and nothing else. And this will probably be a film that, in my opinion, will, for a mainstream audience, will probably take 2 viewings for them to even go, oh, it's about racism. But when they do, I think it will be something where they go, well, yeah, I probably wouldn't want someone in my culture who doesn't understand and is just sort of using it for their own gain. So I can understand why these characters would do the same. And then does that lead to a reflection, maybe, on why, or are they sort of a visitor in a culture and just using it for their own gain? That is, a very political game, but it is also one that I think is sort of possible, and it is an aim that in some aspect, I think can probably come true as a result of this movie. So yes, I think that the premise at its heart ultimately relies very heavily on the idea of culture vultures and sort of how they will essentially act as a leech on anything that is the most popular thing at the time. So, in regards to this movie, Jack O'Connell's character, I don't think you're meant to think that Jack O'Connell's character is racist. He is just sort of attracted to the music, and he views it as the perfect way to enact his bloodlust. In my opinion, before the movie even begins and you watch the trailer, and we'll come on to the trailers soon because I have issues with those. But when you watch those trailers, it is the premise of the movie of like, okay, this is 1932 Mississippi, it's a vampire movie, and the main villain, or the main vampire villain, is a white guy. This is about racism. I don't know how it's about racism, but it is. And so from that sort of like basic premise, not even knowing the musical aspect of this film, I was like, okay, I'm in. I want to see how you do this. I respect Ryan Coogler a lot. I respect Michael B. Jordan a lot. Michael B. Jordan's probably one of my favorite actors, to be honest. I'm going, okay, let's see how you do this. And I think they weave it perfectly. I think the concept is great. And I think that in many ways that the writing, particularly the first half, lives up to it. It develops this concept of a culture vulture very well. So, yes, I think the writing in this movie is excellent, particularly the first half. I think the first half, the story elements that it introduces and the arcs, the character arcs that it introduces, as well as the story of the power of music in this film, but also that sort of back and forth between, music as a vice, as a sin, and on the other hand, as a sort of power and a tool of the oppressed, is a perfect sort of balance. And it, even towards the end of the movie, you never really know. It is one of the main characters who survives, Sammy. Is he going to fall on the side of his dad and go, renounce music, renounce the guitar, the blues music, the jazz, even in a later sort of era? Is he going to renounce all that and go, yes, my father is right, I need to follow the Christian path, only, sing gospel music? Or is he going to go, actually, this isn't the fault of, the oppressed that this music is sinful. It is the fault of those who take advantage of music. And like I said, even towards the very end of the movie, you don't really know which direction he's going to go. Obviously, you have an idea that he's probably going to fall on the side that you want him to fall on, which is the side that, views music as a tool, as a powerful tool, rather than something that's sinful. But the writing and the premise in this sort of building of a narrative around music is something that is so masterfully done. And in my opinion, when the industry is in love and essentially sucks off the idea of a musical biopic, I think this film was the perfect antidote to it, where it goes, this film's about music, but it is still a film at the heart of it. And I think in the last few years, maybe since La La Land, you would be hard pressed to find a movie that is about music and is still a great cinematic experience and is still a worthwhile film for the film itself and not just for the music. If you go and watch A Complete Unknown, that's not a great cinematic experience. You're going to watch Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. You're going, how is he going to pull this off? What is the music going to look like? How is he going to sing like a Rolling Stone? Is he going to do it well? In the first half, I think the writing is excellent. Again, I don't want to start this off, or this first sort of half, talking about the bad aspects or the parts that I think aren't as strong. So I won't talk about the writing in the second half just yet, because I don't think that is as strong, in my opinion. Let's talk about the acting next, because there are some performances in here that I think are really worthwhile talking about. I love Timothée Chalamet. If Timothée Chalamet as a Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown is Oscar worthy, or is it worthy of an Oscar nomination? and in serious contention. We should add, he was in serious contention for that role. He was arguably for the Oscar. He was arguably second behind Adrian Brody, who eventually won it. If that is the case, then I see no reason why Michael B. Jordan couldn't win it for this movie, because he is not playing in the sort of way that, you know, Mickey 17 is just sort of Robert Pattinson in two slightly different roles. He is two completely different characters. They are completely different people. They are all nights. Robert De Niro plays two characters. Boring. Don't give a fuck about that. Why am I watching this? Terrible movie. Send me to sleep. With this movie, one of the characters is a psychopath, you know, is obsessed with money, looking nice, all that sort of stuff. The other character, honourable, to a certain extent, is honourable, you know, is consumed by grief around the death of his child, is, you know, willing to put a bullet in anyone for his brother. The film convinces you that there are two Michael Jordans on screen, Michael B. Jordan on screen. You're never watching it and going, oh, it's the same guy. It is two different characters, both played by Michael B. Jordan. It is so good, and it brought me so much fun, particularly because I think that the character of Smoke in the film, who is the most serious, you know, grounded sort of character, and arguably I would say he is the main character out of the two. Whilst he is very good as Smoke in the film, Michael B. Jordan as Stack is so much fun, because you will never see Michael B. Jordan in this sort of role. Whether it's, you know, Wallace in The Wire, Fruitvale Station, Friday Night Lights, Creed, Black Panther, there's more. Regardless of what role it is, I never feel like Michael B. Jordan's having a lot of fun on the screen. And that is because he has deliberately taken roles to build a sense of aura, let's say. Okay, I had a little technical issue. I'm back. I was talking about Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan, in my opinion, has very deliberately chosen very serious, dramatic roles to build a sort of image of himself as a serious, dramatic actor. And that's perfectly fine. I don't have an issue with that. But there isn't a sort of aspect to his career where you could regard it as he is playing a version of the same character a lot of the time. Maybe they have different motivations, maybe they have a different accent, that sort of thing. They're in a different style of movie. Yes, fair enough. With that being said, other than an early film in That Awkward Moment, I never really feel like you're watching a film where he's going, oh, I'm having fun with this character. So with the character of Stack, it is so fun. It is still a serious performance in terms of he's seriously good, but nothing that Stack ever says in the movie, other than, you know, maybe the second half, the first half particularly, and I'll just spoil it. So in the second half, Stack becomes a vampire. In the second half of the film, it's slightly more serious just because of the element of him becoming a villain. But with that being said, he's still having fun, even as that character. Michael B. Jordan as a vampire, and as a vampire who finds what he's doing entertaining, is so good. Like, that's so entertaining. Why have we never been given that before? And I hope that this sort of film spurs on Michael B. Jordan to go and do more things like this. I'm not saying bin off, you know, your Creeds and your Black Panthers and just become a comedic actor. But I hope there is an element to him that goes, I had fun with that. Let me explore that. Let me see if I can do more roles that are comedic. And understand that not everything needs to be a serious, dramatic role. So yeah, in my opinion, there's enough here that I really think, if the year isn't, you know, very strong, and I know I've titled this video like, or at least the thumbnail is like that this is the best movie of the year. It is so far because it's been a pretty weak year, but I think this film is still pretty good. If this year is pretty weak in terms of acting performances, I can see no reason why he isn't in that sort of Oscar sort of class, let's say, at the end of the year. I think he's good enough in this film for it. I'm obviously going to say it again. because I think it's that good. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it, or at least gets a nomination. And I would actually probably be a bit disappointed if he didn't get a nomination, at least up to now. I don't know what else is going to come out that might surpass it, but I would be a bit disappointed up to right now if he isn't in there. So then you get a couple of the other performances. There's only, I would say, 2 that I want to talk about that I thought were really worthwhile, although I don't really have very much to say about them because I'm not well versed in both of the actors' sort of, let's say, resume. So the most brief one let's talk about is Miles Caton. This is his first role in acting, and before this he had been an R&B artist. Apparently he had trained 5 days a week for, I think it was like 5 hours, to learn the blues music that he performs in the movie. And let me just say, I've never listened to Miles Caton's R&B music, but don't make R&B music. Just go and make jazz, just go and make blues music for the rest of your life, because his voice in this movie is fucking incredible. And downright, in many aspects, I go, this is better than any of the actual music biopics I've seen. The musical aspect is better than the music biopics. And this is just a film about music. And he's at the centerpiece of the middle movie, or the middle of the movie's sort of, it has a musical set piece, let's say. And that was an element where I went, is this just basically a musical right now? And I think in some aspect it kind of is. He is at the sort of centerpiece of that. He is like the sort of the center of attention in many ways. In that set piece, really holds his own for a guy who's never acted on the camera before. And if he is this good in this film, as long as he makes the right choices, I can't see why he can't continue to be a great actor, because he's really, really good in this. And obviously, given that he's essentially maybe the 3rd or 4th lead in this film, it'll take us seeing a film with him where he isn't, reliant, or where he isn't reliant on the musical aspects of the film. And I wonder what that'll look like if he just goes for a fully fledged, like, this is a serious role, or this is even a comedic role. I wonder what that will look like. I wonder if he's strong enough to actually lead a movie by himself. I think based on the performance of this movie, I think he is, and I hope to see more from him. But yeah, like I said, it's pretty brief about him because I don't have very much to say about it other than that. Other than to say he was great. I thought he performed the music very, very well, and I hope he has a long career in acting because he's very fucking good in this. And then the other one that I wanted to talk about, purely out of interest about her inclusion, but not a negative sort of interest, a very positive interest, because I thought it was interesting in terms of, in my opinion, it defied Hollywood conventions. And so the inclusion that I'm talking about is Wunmi Mosaku as, I would say, the first love interest, essentially the love interest number 1, and then Hailee Steinfeld is kind of love interest number 2. I thought it was interesting that Wunmi Mosaku is in this, because I wouldn't regard her as what Hollywood would consider a heartthrob, a sex symbol, anything like that. Her character is very intimately tied to Michael B. Jordan's character Smoke, and they are in love, like legitimately. But it is very hard, in my opinion, to cast particularly women in the love interest role if they can't be regarded as what Hollywood considers the attractive, sort of stunning, beautiful sort of archetype. So it is interesting that she is included in this for me. And I believe that the reason why she is because there is sort of a dichotomy between, let's say, Hailee Steinfeld's character and Wunmi Mosaku's character. I believe that Hailee Steinfeld's character in this movie, and this is no shade to her, I think she's very good in this movie as well. I believe that Hailee Steinfeld's character represents more of the sort of vanity of Stack's character, even though he also loves Hailee Steinfeld. I believe that Hailee Steinfeld represents the sort of vanity of Stack's character, whereas Smoke's character is a lot more grounded and down to earth, and he was ready to start a family. And it is only the death of his child that then makes him go back on that and just become a hardcore gangster, essentially. And So it is interesting that both of these are sort of included, because I believe that you are looking at one of the characters going, oh, this is, you know, Stack. You know, you can understand why he's with her, because he's a sort of a vain guy. He probably got with her originally out of a sense of vanity. Whereas Smoke is, in my opinion, the guy who's much more orientated around family and honor and, you know, building a family as well. So it makes much more sense that he would focus much more on the personality of the person than the sort of attractiveness of the character, let's say. And that's not me saying Wunmi Mosaku isn't attractive, that's just me saying I don't believe she represents vanity in the same way. And this feels like a very deliberate casting choice, in my opinion, from Ryan Coogler and his team. And it's one that I think pays off very well. And it would be hard for me to not view it in that way, considering go back through Wunmi Mosaku's career and find out how many Hollywood movies she's led as the main love interest. I would guess it's not many, and that's harsh on her. But also, I think that Ryan Coogler around this movie, even off the set of the film, I think everything that he's done defies Hollywood conventions, and I think that's a major credit to Wunmi Mosaku as an actress and to Ryan Coogler as a director, and not a drawback. And it isn't meant to insult her, what I'm saying. It is meant to say she is in this movie based on her acting. And so credit to her for that. And then the final sort of thing that I want to talk about in the positive realm is that I think that Ryan Coogler is operating very, very near the top of his game in this movie. And I should also say he wrote the movie, so both the positives and the negatives of this movie essentially fall on the writing, or many of the positives, I'll say, fall on the writing in this movie. In my opinion, pretty much everything comes back to Ryan Coogler, both the negatives and the positives of this movie. But in the respective directing and how he directs this movie, it feels like if he's smart, which I very much believe he is, clearly, when you watch this film, you can see how smart he is. When it comes to his next movie, I hope that he just builds on this, and he understands that even though it might not be the most successful film at the box office, on the other hand, he has developed an amazing film, an amazing IP that I'm hoping we see more from. I think given the end scene, the post-credit scene, I think there is inevitably going to be more. And he feels, in my opinion, very much to be a student of the game, and it feels like he is pulling from every direction that he has learned from over the course of his career, and even before he, began his career in the industry. So you can hear him talk about with IMAX, you can hear him talk about Christopher Nolan and the impact of the Dark Knight trilogy on him. I think that is very clear in the sort of cinematic aspect, and it's very clear given how much he focused on the camera work and the sort of what cameras they used, particularly using IMAX and Panavision cameras. Then, there's the influence that he's talked about of the Puss in Boots movie on the villain. And then also, finally, I think you can see the influence of, I will say the influence of just music in general and musical artists, I would say. And then there is also, I would argue, probably the biggest influence, in my opinion, if I had to guess, is probably Jordan Peele, who I believe they are very close friends off screen. This film is very interesting to me in the sense that Ryan Coogler has spent a good number of years developing pre-existing IPs, and he has taken everything he's learned. He's developed himself into a powerhouse Hollywood director, and is now turning around and going, okay, I've done all that. If you want me, you're going to give me what the fuck I want. You're going to give me as big of a budget as I want. You're going to give me creative freedom. you're going to give me control of the IP after, 25 years? And then I'm going to cast whoever the fuck I want. And I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And I can't in any way speak about him on this movie in any other way than a severe adoration. He pours so much love into this film. You can tell that this was a passion project. And if he didn't get 90 million to make this film on, I think he probably would have made it on 10. I think he probably would have made it on 5, a million, $500,000, whatever it is. I just think he would have got this made, whatever it took. Now for me, it's purely just a case of where can he go. He's apparently meant to be directing the X-Files series, and he is also doing another Black Panther movie because, of course, Marvel will never let a guy go like that. I'm not saying that neither of those properties have merit and shouldn't exist, but it is interesting to me that I believe he views his career as, I will give the industry one or two major successes, their Hollywood box office successes, and then they'll turn around and give me what I want for my next film, for my next personal project. And in that respect, he has to be the hardest working director, or one of them. He has to be the smartest, or one of the smartest directors, because, you know, not everyone can exist on your Christopher Nolan level, where he can just go, give me $500 million budget and I will make $2 billion. I'm adapting the Odyssey. I'm going to do what the fuck I want. Not everyone can do that. Some of these directors that want to make big budget original IPs, which there isn't many of anyways, some of them need to exist within the confines of Hollywood and then use that to finance their own passion projects. And therefore, to me, in many respects, he is a very, very smart guy. He's a very, very hardworking, driven director who I just want to see more from. And now I kind of want to go back, watch the original Creed, watch 2 and 3, which I've never seen 3, rewatch Fruitvale Station, which I haven't seen since I was a teenager, and then watch finally the Black Panther movies, which I've just never watched because I'm not really interested in Marvel. But, you know, if it's got him involved, if it's got Michael B. Jordan involved as well, then I will be there. Again, I can't speak about this guy in any way than just simply being with a level of adoration. It is so impressive what he's built here, and I cannot believe that he's managed to build not just an IP, but an IP about music, about minorities, about the Deep South in the 1930s. This is a wholly unique film in 2025. When was the last film we seen something like that? The three markers that I just given you. There's nothing else that exists within those confines, or anything even like it. Everything about this film just screams love to me. The music, the directing, the camera work, the writing, the casting, everything. Everything is so good, and I'm so happy that this has been a critical success for Coogler. And I hope that it survives long in the tooth to make its budget back so that he can make another one. And then let's just end on some of the criticisms. These are light criticisms. I don't have major issues with the movie. It's just a couple of things that held back the writing for me, and a couple of things that held back the story for me. And in many ways, I can actually understand why the story seems a bit underdeveloped for me. I believe that in many aspects, the film kind of stops its story at sort of the halfway aspect, and then it shifts into the musical aspect and then into the action aspect. And it makes sense that in many ways, the story kind of stops developing where it does, because it needs to satisfy the action pieces and the musical set piece. However, for me, there are two arcs that feel underdeveloped. It is the two love interests, Wunmi Mosaku and Hailee Steinfeld, that feel a bit underdeveloped and feel like they are sort of just, you know, they have their issues with their respective smoke or stack, and then, you know, they have sex or they make up with a kiss, and then I say, all right, yeah, we've dealt with that. And particularly Wunmi Mosaku's character says to Smoke, I don't want your blood money, which is a very serious thing to say to your ex-husband who's also a gangster. Again, I understand why they sort of stopped developing it at a certain aspect, or at a certain point, but it feels that given the performances that Hailee Steinfeld and Wunmi Mosaku are putting out, it feels a bit underdeveloped. And I believe that if they had been given even more to do, they would have gone on to become even better characters in their own rights than they actually are, which is that they're sort of limited to the rules of being love interests. And that's a bit disappointing. But again, I understand it, and I don't have... I don't regard that as a major criticism, in my opinion. And then the other criticism that I have isn't even directly of the movie, it's actually of the movie's trailers. And I understand that, you know, films with big budgets need to entice an audience, and that's why they show so much of the film in the trailers. And it's almost my own fault for watching the trailers. But if you watch the trailer for this movie, even the first one, you can pretty much get the entire film from that. It shows every major plot beat. And so there wasn't any element of surprise in this movie, and I never felt like, oh, that's a shock. I at every point knew what was coming. I knew that Hailee Steinfeld turned to a vampire. I knew that Stack turned to a vampire, and I kind of knew that Smoke would be the only one left out of the party other than Miles Caton's character, Sammy. I mean, I struggle with that, and I struggle with the arcs sort of being left incomplete. But ultimately, like I say, they're not major criticisms that I'm really, like, you know, tearing my hair out. They are just things that I think could be sort of tied up a bit better, and the trailer just not show as much. But other than that, again, this is a film that I have huge adoration for, a director that I have huge love for, and Michael B. Jordan, who I believe is, you know, one of the best in terms of ability acting right now. It is just purely about whether or not he wants to pursue a lot of roles, or as many roles as he can, that really allows him to show it. I'm gonna leave it there, but if there's any film that I've reviewed this year where I go, this needs to be seen by more people, and I hope I've convinced at least one person through this video to watch it, it is this film. This film is really... it is the definition of a labour of love. And it is insane that this film got made. And it is insane how good that I believe this film is. And I don't know why it has taken this long. And I cannot wait to see more what everyone involved with this film does next. What is Coogler's next project? What is Michael B. Jordan's next film? And I want to see them. I want them to do well. They are both actors, or they are both an actor and director that seem to really care about their craft and are putting in the hours and the toil and the labour to really be the best in their fields. And I want it for both of them. And this film is one small step in achieving that. And I hope it gets the awards that it deserves. Obviously, this film's still quite fresh in my mind, so that could change. But right now, this is the best film that's came out this year. Hands down, quite easily. I don't think there's anything else that can compete with this, in my opinion. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you if you made it this far. This is another 45-minute video, so I'm not expecting many too. But thank you anyways. Like, comment, subscribe if you made it this far. Thank you.